think we talk a lot about imperfection and owning the imperfections of
Yes.
ourselves. I mean, it's really important that I'm aiming to be the best version of myself every day, and I'm trying to get better and working at it. And I want them to do the same thing. I want my wife and I to do the same thing in our relationship.
Right.
We are not who we were. We've changed together and we've changed in different
Right.
ways, things that I love more today and things that I loved more yesterday, and there are things that are challenging as we get older, but as we look at all that, growth is this transformational thing that when you look back at it, I love the Dr. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan's book, The Gap and the Gain, because it's something
Mhm.
as a leader I have to tell myself on a regular basis. If I live in the gap and I'm constantly setting a boundary
Yeah.
of something in the future, and we do this. I mean, I've done it for years
Right.
and I'm so much better
Yeah.
today than I ever was. But if I'm setting that goalpost and I'm kicking a 30-yard field goal, and now I want to kick a 35-yard field goal and a 40-yard field goal, or if I make $1 million, then I've succeeded. If I make $10 million, I've succeeded.
Right.
And it never ends, right? But the
Right.
gain is looking at where you started from to where you are today. And if you look
Yes.
back at that, the gratitude, the success, the feeling of hey, imperfection's fine, but look at the journey.
Mhm.
It's so much more powerful, and that's hard for parents, and it's really hard in relationships.
It is, and it's a great example on so many again, in that left and that right chairs, they're so focused on what they don't have, with what's not working, with where they're failing or the imperfection. And the middle chair mindset, it's not like a it's not like a toxic positivity. Like, people sometimes kinda question me about that. Is that like a toxic positivity, or you're kind of, like, negating in terms of real things that are a problem? It's not. It's just seeing it for both it's seeing the ledger on both sides. It's like, yes, there are some issues that have to get addressed. Yes, there are some, things that we have to kinda work on. Yes, there are some gaps. And this is also the gratitude that place of gratitude. Like, I'm so thankful that ABC happened, and I'm so thankful that I've got resources to help me with the gap, And so I always try to kind of when I coach, whether it's individuals or teams, I'm always trying to kind of get them to make sure we've got to look at both sides of it. It's both. It's not either or. It's both. And so again, somebody who's sitting in that middle chair, it's like, yes, there are issues, but there are also options in terms of what we can do towards those issues. And the more that we can actually kind of focus on that, and it kind of goes back to that thing that we're talking about before, which is focus on what you can control and accept what you can't. And
With
that goes to business, relationships, parenting, friendships, fitness, finances, all of it. Doesn't take change the topic, but that principle is super powerful and very empowering. I mean, that's the biggest thing when I coach, whether it's individuals or teams, they feel so empowered the more they can actually do that. It's like, yes, I'm gonna accept I can't control this. I can control this. I'm gonna like really push, step on the gas towards that, and that kind of just tends to fuel more that kind of middle chair mindset.
on the attitude, it really goes back to your story, and that is in the 8th grade when you were told that you have a learning disability, instead of being the
Yeah.
victim, you became the victor, and you really decided, "What can I control?" And at the
Yes.
worst moments of the most challenging parts of my life, I have written down on a list, "What can
Yes.
I control? What can I not control?"
Yes.
And for me, going through the most challenging times, this is where I feel like the cheat code sometimes is faith, because when there's
Mhm.
something bigger than myself, when there's something
Yes.
that's outside of myself, I'm not trying to control every attribute, every
Yes.
single thing. I'm actually surrendering and releasing some of that. And the older we get, the easier that becomes. The younger we are, the
Mhm.
harder it is, which is why I sent your TED talk to 5 people today. And that was because most of them are young, they're
Yeah.
17. They're girls that I admire, that I know their value, that I see it in them,
Right.
and
Right.
I love them. I want them to be successful, but I want them to hear someone else talking about something that I can't excuse me, I can't deliver to them.
Yes. Yes. And it is the secret sauce on success, however people define it. So, people can define success in many, many different ways. But really understanding that separation around accepting what I cannot control and and also focusing on what I can control, and when I was diagnosed with my disability, as I shared in the TED Talk, I identified myself as really in that left chair. Like, I sat in that left chair. I would have if someone had showed me these 3 chairs, I would have been like, "That's me." And so, for a while, I did play the victim. I did play the victim, and woe is me, and life is hard, and this isn't unfair, and really kind of having that mindset, life is not fair, and not being willing to accept help. This is the other issue, is that I absolutely refused because I was so ashamed of it. I absolutely refused help. And this is really good for all parents listening, that, when you've got a strong spirited child, which I am, you have to parent them a little differently. And the best way you parent them is you allow them to basically make their own mistakes, and a lot of times fall and fail miserably. And that's what I had to do. So once I kind of came to terms with, I had this disability in my family, my parents are wonderful and they wanted me to get help. I refused it. I had to fail. My very first exam in high school was 37% in English. It's funny, I've written like 4 books, and I just tell people, you just get to a certain level, you hire other people. So you just
Oh,
it's like, you
you
don't you
find
don't
your
have to be
talent.
all things to all people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right, you don't have to be all things, but I figured out at least what I had to do and how my brain worked, and so grade 9 was a mess. I was falling and failing all over the place, and because of the failure, that was my wake-up call. I needed to do something different, and so that was when I started really setting more realistic goals and starting to put up my hand and asking for help. That's when I really started feeling a shift, and that was a process, right? Like, that doesn't happen overnight, but that is a as understanding. And so when we work with leaders and we do leadership development in companies, it's so interesting. Like, leadership to me is not a title, it's not a position, it's not degrees beside your name. It's a mindset. It's an attitude that we all learn, and you can learn it and start teaching it to children. So like today, I'm doing 5 different podcasts and keynotes. Yours is the first. And then we're doing an entrepreneurs one. We're doing a leadership one for about 50 different companies. And then tonight I finish off doing a parenting one on how do you teach confidence to parents, for their kids. So this is a topic that really transcends every single age group and every position that we all have.
If you like clips like this, I have a similar clip here. And if you want to watch the full video, click here.